Hi, my name is Russell Knowles, and I'll be talking about the Goddess Brigid, and specifically her transformative power through the Eight Wiccan Sabbats. I will give an introduction and background where I talk about my inspirations and influences. I will talk about the development of the practice, and finally a demonstration of practice, which will take the form of a path working around Brigid and one of the Wiccan Sabbats. So I said my name is Russell Knowles, and I've been practicing Wicca and magic for over 30 years. I was initially initiated into the Old Meldrum Coven in Aberdeenshire in the early 90s by High Priestess Margaret Ingalls, among other people. I eventually started the Circle of Brigid, which is now in West Lothian, in late 2012. So why did I choose the name Circle of Brigid? Well, I was very much drawn to Brigid as a Scottish Celtic deity whose name clearly harked back to some original pre-Christian goddess worship in these islands. And I like the notion of reconnecting with a current of worship that links back through the mists of time to our ancestors. Brigid was very popular in Scotland and Ireland and in the Highlands and the Hebrides and so on. The Hebrides are named after Brigid, Hebrides. There are many other places across the country that are named after her. The Kilbrides, there's many Kilbrides, son of Brigid, of Brigid. The word bride itself comes from Brigid. And there's many wells and springs and places associated with her. So she's a goddess whose name permeates our language and it permeates a place, a power of the land, if you like. So I like this idea of a linking with a deity or a power that represent the very place, the land, or nature itself where I lived and walked and breathed. And that's something as Wiccans we try to do, isn't it? We try to link with nature or have a relationship with nature. So I thought the best way to do that was with a very powerful goddess who represented the place itself where we are. And if you do magic and you're the sort of person that tries to link with local things, the more powerful they are, the more accessible they are. So that was a driving force for me. The other thing is, as a Wiccan practitioner, I was never 100% had a personal great relationship, if you like, with the notion of Aradia. It might be a little bit controversial. Obviously, I'm a Wiccan. Aradia has been central to my practice for a long time. But as you know, the origins of Aradia are perhaps a little bit controversial. Brigid isn't. It's that simple. And part of me just wishes that Gerald Gardner had gone with the more British goddess such as Brigid. As Ronald Hutton said, Wicca's one of the religions the religion that Britain or England has given to the world. And applaud Gerald Gardner for rebooting this English folk tradition, which is probably just going to disappear into the mists of time. But Gardner, Valiente, Daffo, those people, they completely rebooted this system using what they had available to them at the time, and have produced this very powerful system which we all benefit from. And they definitely were very, very successful in doing that. But part of me wishes that they perhaps had used Brigid. But her name may reach really far back to the ancient Mother Bear goddess of prehistoric Europe. So Brigid is potentially one of humanity's oldest identifiable deities. Her name is also linked to illumination and enlightenment. The name Brigid is related to high or lofty or elevated or bright one, bright being this bright spiritual fire. So we understood this notion of enlightenment or illumination was at the core of magic. We also understood that the forces of nature and human perfection was a central notion of Wicca, as derived from its Gnostic roots. One or two people may think that's a controversial thing for me to say, but as was just explaining, Gardner and co, they rebooted the system with what they had available to them, and they very much had links to, or Gardner especially had links to the OTO material, Hermeticism, everything in Western mystery system has been influenced by the Golden Dawn and the rituals of the Golden Dawn. So within these, and Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism and so on. So within these system, there's two very main streams really that come through. One is not the Gnosticism, and the other is Hermeticism, and they're both completely linked. So those things are very much part of Wicca, or influence Wicca as a spirituality. Just to be very quick, what is Gnosticism or the Gnostics? Well, the Gnostics didn't see salvation in terms of an external God that you had to pray to and be saved. To the Gnostics, we all had God within us as a kind of fractal version, if you like, of the divine spirit which permeated the universe. So that was within us all, and that was what made us individually unique and have self-awareness and so on. And so it was about connecting to that inner individual spark of divinity, and then using that to connect to everything else. It's where it parallels and overlaps with this Eastern idea of connection, which I really like. I think that's really interesting, that seems to be widespread. And that's very much the same as the Hermetic principles, as above, so below. So everything all links up, as I'm sure you're aware. I don't have to lecture you on these things. So I personally was very drawn to Wicca in the 90s because to me, intuitively, it had that idea of a spirituality which has encouraged personal liberty. So inspirations then, my perspective was very much in line with Wiccan scholar and writer Vivian Crowley, for example, who interprets the initiation degrees and rites of Wicca in terms of Jungian psychology, that's self-actualization. Other practitioners such as Janet and Stuart Farrar, who see Wicca, the initiation process, as a process of growth and renewal. You have Jean and Zach Williams, Bricketwood, Coven in London, very much associated with the Aberdeenshire Old Meldrum Coven. And Jean Williams, a psychologist, very much identified Wicca as linking in with the human potential movement or humanistic psychology, which took root in the 50s and 60s and is now a major force. I think the third force in psychology. So yes, I would definitely assert that the Gnostic idea and the current is a major force within Wicca also. Some people, I think, see Wicca as being a little bit kind of new agey and doesn't have these ideas. I would completely disagree with that. Okay, so the development of practice. So as I said, we'd identified Brigid as very much a powerful goddess of illumination transformation, and I thought what would be the best way to link or to utilise that, and that was the Wiccan Sabbats, because the Wiccan Sabbats are nodes or points in time where we celebrate changes in nature, and we also we identify that change as the growth, or on the wheel of growth, don't we, of ever-present change, and we change continually as well, psychically perhaps. So the changes in nature could be associated with the growth and changes of our own psyche, and that's one of the things we do in Wicca. So I thought it was perfect if we could utilise that with Brigid, with the idea of illumination and self-actualization and all those things. So a powerful key for doing that was to identify the alchemy that was occurring throughout the year, which we could then map on and associate it with the alchemy of the changing of ourselves from the inferior lead to the superior gold, or to use a well-worn magical phrase, Asarun Nefer, myself made perfect, which is from the Egyptian language used in Crowley's Liber Samic. Liber Samic, obviously a very powerful ritual associated with the Abramelin, which is to gain a guide spirit, a holy guardian angel. Again, something which is very central to the Western mystery system. The Goddess Brigid, therefore, is perfect for the Wiccan to work with alchemy, because in her role as a metalsmith, transmuting ores over the fires of a kiln, it very much embodies the idea of transforming this one thing to another. an inspiration that I've relied on heavily for alchemy is the work of teacher, writer, and proponent of alchemy, Dennis William Hawke. Dennis is a very prolific writer on alchemy. He's written lots of easy to follow guides on the subject. He's got a good website about the alchemy of consciousness. I would recommend it. Definitely give Dennis a wee plug, because he was very gracious enough to grant me permission to quote much of his ideas and thoughts on the stages of alchemy. So the 7 major operations of alchemy are as follows: 1, calcination; 2, dissolution; 3, separation; 4, conjunction; 5, fermentation; 6, distillation; and 7, coagulation. And these are sort of like based around the idea of purifying a substance, or chemically you take something. Calcination is burning off the organic dross, being left with the inorganic part, which you redissolve, you separate, you ferment again, distill. So it's the idea of distilling this pure essence of the one thing, isn't it, from a substance. And again, you can link that to self-actualization and distilling that pure essence of yourself, your true self. So I believe I've quite successfully synthesized these aspects of the operations of alchemy to and with the seasonal energies being experienced at each of the Sabbats. In order for the Wiccan practitioner then to penetrate these mysteries of the Sabbats, or to work with them and engage with them, I've used the tool of pathworking. So alchemy is a process, and pathworking is the tool. So development of practice then, stage 1, I've linked to Astara. So Astara is renewal, isn't it? That time of renewal and birth, and the soul has a sincere desire to ascend and reject those parts of herself that no longer serve us. We want a new beginning. Beltane represents further breaking down of the artificial structures of the psyche, and that's related to that, again, the energies of that season, fertility and drive, a drive towards something else. Litha, separation, and that's letting go of the self-inflicted restraints of our true nature so that we can shine through. So Litha is about abundance, isn't it? It's about abundance in summer, and it's about bursting through and shining through with our true selves and having the energy behind us to do that. So hopefully you can get the idea of how this kind of works. Lammas, I've linked to operation number 4, conjunction begins. So this is starting to unite the energies which transcend the material to that of spirit. And Lammas is this kind of first harvest kind of time, and that's the time where we can see that changes are ahead, and we're having to prepare for that. Mabon, operation 4, conjunction union. So Mabon, where the forces of spirit continue as we celebrate a time of thanks and balance at Mabon. We're beginning to put our first feet into the realm of spirit, if you like. We've had that abundance, that life, and we're looking towards a close, if you like, of the cycle. So what we've willed in Lammas is coming to the fore now at Mabon. In number 5, operation 5, I've linked that to Samhain, and that's fermentation and putrefaction. And there's an idea of sacrifice, new beginnings, exactly what we understand by the Death card and Tarot. Operation 5 links extremely well to Samhain, and it's being the time of spirit, isn't it? The veil is at its thinnest. Number 6, operation 6, distillation. So we're touching our own potential, a return to who we truly are. It's a celebration. Yule is like the celebration. And we've had all that kind of cycle behind us, and I also like the idea of distillation being appropriate for Yule, especially in Scotland, if you know what I mean, for that time of year. 7, coagulation then. So this is the final stage of transformation. The feminine energies of that time guide a renewal. This is a feeling of perfection, full acceptance of the completion of the previous year. New energies, abundance, birth, well, not birth, but potential for birth, if you know what I mean. Basically, it's Brigid, it's Brigid's energies at this time. So coagulation fits extremely well with where Brigid's energies at Imbolc are at full mast. And I like the idea that we've completed a circle there. With Brigid's kind of been the guide all year, and now we've come to that completion. And also that we're going to start a new cycle, so that potential, that surge of new impetus is going to be behind us as we start again. So we've just had the Christmas and New Year and all that, the cycle that's just happened behind us kind of thing. So it's about acknowledging that, feeling who we truly are, and getting closer to who we truly are, that essence of who we truly are, perhaps, and thinking about, well, how have I changed since this time last year? If you touch down at this point of the year and think, how have I improved? Where was I this time last year? And reflect on that, you might find it's quite an interesting question, or the answer's quite interesting, because invariably they will have changed to some degree. But I think by focusing on this idea of self-actualization, using Wicca as a spiritual tool to do that, and having the Goddess Brigid, this goddess of illumination and power, walking hand in hand with you through all the path workings, I can't see how you could possibly fail. So the path workings then, how am I engaging with these symbols? Each path working has a particular symbol associated with the particular operation of alchemy and the Sabbat, and so that walks you through it. So I couldn't explain each single one at length. I'd have to read each path working for you to get the idea, which would be far too long. What is pathworking? It's a good question. It's a comparatively new phenomenon, apparently, in the Western mystery tradition. Depends what you read. It was developed by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Specifically, it seems to have developed from the clairvoyant practices of the adepts in the Stella Matutina, one of the several offshoots of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn after it fragmented in early 1900. Probably one of the best known ones. In my opinion, it's basically it's very similar to shamanic journeying, isn't it? So from that point of view, it is a magical technique that has been with us for a very long time indeed. But Israel Regardie talks a lot about it in his book, A Garden of Pomegranates, Scrying on the Tree of Life. Completely recommend this if you want to experience path workings. It's a good handbook to have of use as well. In pathworking, it is the art of imaginatively exploring paths on the Tree of Life, using the correct and particular symbols associated with each of the paths. I've used it then, I've utilised that to use with the energies and the symbolism of the Sabbath. Okay, so I've also used or made poems. I was also inspired to try and write some poetic verses as a kind of offering to the Goddess Brigid. She is a goddess of the muse of poetry as well, so I was inspired to try to connect to her using this method as a kind of feedback or an offering of words to Spirit. As I mentioned before, when you give offerings to Spirit as part of your practice, it can become a very powerful and effective method for working with magic. I would not claim to be a poet, but the endeavour of creating the words and giving them does lend an effective dynamic to your magic. And again, it links in again, doesn't it, to the idea of illumination and so on, because I'm sure the bards of old, such as Merlin or Taliesin, they were also poets and knew lots of verses, and there's an obvious relationship between creativity and art and magic, which I think is really interesting. Margaret, again, this probably links back to my experience at Old Meldrum. Margaret Ingalls, probably one of the brightest people I've ever met, had a huge library in her head of songs and verses, specifically from the northeast of Scotland as well, but all around. And we were often treated to that sort of thing during Sabbats. So, I think that's something that's stayed with me. So all this kind of stuff is collected in one works, the complete system of path workings, poetry, and my thoughts on the practice are collected in a book called The Goddess Brigid by Russell Knowles, and it's published by Green Magic Publishing. You can get it from there or from Amazon as well. And I'd be more than happy to sign any copies or anything like that if anybody really wanted it. I don't know how we managed to do that, but if you can get in touch with Steffi or something and maybe relate it to me, I could possibly do that. I'd be more than happy to do that. And in there, as I said, is a complete system of all the path workings and the poetry that links it. It links to the Sabbats as well. And there's a sort of template of how to use these things as well. And in section 2, there's my kind of rationale and opinions on where the magic comes from and how I developed it and so on. I'd be more than happy, of course, as well, if you did purchase this and use it how you will. You could cannibalize it. You could cannibalize the words. You can chop and change things. I do not mind. And you could do... you could use parts of it in your own rituals or so on, or you could use it as standalone meditations, that kind of thing. I will give a wee warning though. The people that have used it already, and when we have used it in the circle, and even when members of the circle have read the stuff on their own, just reading it for interest, have found that it has a transformative power and basically puts you in a bit of a dreamy state. So if you're going to be reading that and you need to do something, make sure you ground yourself first. So a formula for using this then, which I've said in the book, would be one, first of all, using the Brigid internal power charge, as it's called. It's a method of banishment and kind of putting a magical shield around you first, and makes you invisible to things that you wouldn't want to be visible to on the astral plane. It's a nice technique as well. It just feels good when you do it. Then there's the building of the energy, the Wiccan rune, but I've changed that slightly. I feel bad saying this now. I'm actually now that I'm recording this, I probably feel better that I'm recording it and I'm not in front of a room full of Wiccans, because I feel a bit cheeky tweaking the Doreen Valiente version from my own ends. But in my defence, my High Priestess Margaret Ingalls used to always say to us, don't be bound by the rules, change things, create, alter. Don't find the words are the right, very prescriptive, do it from the heart, and change it by all means. So if I have altered Valientes, it's because Margaret told me to. It's my High Priestess made me do it, so how can I not? So there you go. And after the rune, there's a transactional magic, and that's a method of working with the rune again, but this time to send offerings back to the watchtowers. So obviously when we do the watchtowers, east, south, west and north, then we go around again with some transactional magic, which instead of taking from them and asking them to do stuff, is to give back some of the power from the rune. So it's just a little sort of alteration of practice that I've developed over the years, and if you include that in your practice, it'd be interesting to see how it works for you. That's all I'll say. Then there's a poem or offering of words, as I was talking about, and then that would lead into anything else you wanted to do, and then the path working. After the path working, cakes and ale, very important to ground yourself after any meditation or path working back to mundane reality. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, because I think I've been talking for quite a while, is I will go straight to the Beltane, offering of words and path working, because I haven't been timing myself. I probably should have started timing myself, but I haven't really been timing myself, so I'll talk forever, forget the chance, so I don't want to get into trouble. So what I'll do is I'll do the poem and that. Okay, so first of all, if you've been using the rune or something, you'll be built up with a bit of power, but it's a question, you can just rub your hands together and then aim the palm of your hands out as if you're broadcasting. Remember, relax the muscles. If your muscles are tight, it doesn't let the chi flow as much. So if you relax and let things flow, and if you're broadcasting through the palm of your hands out towards the centre of the altar or the centrepiece where you may have Brigid or any goddess there, whatever statue or whatever symbol, and broadcast towards it and say something like, "A mighty goddess, we both honour you and evoke you with these words." Beltane. As wild winds blow, the furrows cast, the frost it yields to warmth at last, and life it shakes a dusty coat, and barks and calls and clears its throat. The cats stretch out upon the grass, buds and leaves unfurl from masts. Wind and sun and water and earth conjoin together, then give birth. The coil is sprung, the race is seen, full tilt across the village green. Behind closed doors a witch's rites, or in the woods come Beltane night. To stir the gods in magic will, to tap ancestral currents still, and breathe it in and radiate, illuminate and celebrate. Great Goddess Brigid, lead us peacefully through this Beltane path working. Beltane. As you allow yourself to relax, you become less attentive to the physical surroundings. Close your eyes and tune into the other energies in the room. You sense fleeting movements within the stillness of the room, and you know there are energies fluxing and concentrating within the circle. The mechanisms of magic are primed and listening, awaiting the signs to carry out your will through time and space. Some of the energies you have created are here, while others are external, drawn to this place of magic by your act of will. Energy is a gateway by which we peer through the veil. Still there is more. The ancestral current of others before us have made the well-worn path we call Wicca. It extends to Old Meldrum and beyond, branching like a gigantic tree across time and space, linking every single brother and sister, priest and priestess. We're all family. Its roots do not stop at Gardner and Valiente and Daffo, but echo at every sacred landscape, old symbols and old church walls, green men and Sheila-na-gigs, forgotten caverns, and further back to the mighty titans at the beginning of time. You thank the Lord and Lady for putting you here, now at this moment, with these friends and this knowledge. As you reach out to the gods through the spiralling mists, through the astral, by stem and shoot and leaf and bud, by root and branch and stone and rock, you are transported to a forest. You behold the image of a mighty tree with all its connections to every Wiccan and Pagan on the planet. A vast white elm, glimmering, majestic and bright, growing fuller and fuller, brighter and brighter in the universe. Stars span the skies far ahead, and you see that you are but a small light on a small branch, but essential nonetheless to the overall shape and essence of the tree. And now as you step further back, you see that there are even other trees glowing in the forest of humanity. We celebrate the forces that both define our humanity and help guide us through the chaos of changing times. You feel filled with love and appreciation for all fellow humans, animals and plants as you walk through a forest of tall, old trees. This is an old place. The path snaking through is old and worn, and you wonder about the various priests and priestesses, Wiccans, witches, druids, shamans, magicians who have walked through here before you. As you walk, you begin to hear voices sing, carried through the foliage, echoing and rebounding off trees and tree stumps from you know not where. Carefully, as you listen, you can make out the words of the Wiccan rune. The words convey a feeling of nostalgia and knowing to you, and you're both excited and curious as to who is performing this rune deep in this magical place. As you walk, the sounds become a little louder and more audible. There is a short silence, followed by a ringing sound, as you hear the words spoken. I was born in the dark midnight of the year, and as the year grew, so did I. God of the greenwood am I, mighty hunter, wild and free. But now the tides of summer are starting to flow and the sun dances. As the sun waxes, so shall I. The sacred night of Beltane has come again. The woods and meadow flowers flower forth. Let us rekindle the balefire. You smile to yourself as you understand that while you do not see the people performing this, their voices can be heard here in this magical place, as their offering and celebration of the gods and spirits of the season. You shout to them, "Yes, the gods can hear you." And just as you shout this, you understand that by hearing this and knowing this, the gods have granted you the power to benefit from the people before you. By those who have made the path easier to follow for each new generation of Wiccans, for each soul going around the wheel of life again. As the balefire is lit, the forest glows from all directions with a warm orange light, like a morning sunrise, giving warmth and comfort everywhere. You realise that this powerful light cannot come from just one ritual fire, as it is now everywhere at once. This light, you now realise with awe and wonder, emanates from a being far different and far older than human beings. This is the light of the Goddess Brigid as she moves purposely through the earth. You are lucky enough to see her for an instant. A smiling, benevolent face radiates fleetingly through the trees and foliage, spreading warmth and illumination. She is wearing a long, flowing garment made of transparent threads of fire and gold, which move in slow motion like a dream. Her feet do not seem to touch the earth as she glides effortlessly through the forest. You wonder if the voice created her or called her into being. Was she ever there, and the wise ones before us just connected with her? That is a mystery that our linear minds are as yet ill-equipped to answer. As she moves through the forest, the light dims but does not fade. The light, you see, is ever with you. You try to catch her, but you cannot keep up, as she does not use the paths that we make, travelling as she does in ways and dimensions that we cannot see. You almost feel like giving up when you hear the sound of running water not too far away. You follow the sound, which becomes louder and louder and more rushing at every turn, until you glimpse, through the trees, reflected light from translucent globes of water scattering from rocks here and there. Walking towards them, you come into a clearing where a huge rock face, glistening with clear spring water, towers above you. Looking up, you see the source of all the spring, covered with ferns and large, pretty flowers in full bloom, as if celebrating the source of a mother's life-giving forth, gushing forth. The water flows freely down the rock face, pooling on the earth around you, tumbling over stones on the earth in one long, glistening river of light, going where it wants, expressing itself with utmost honesty and freedom. The water looks so cool and refreshing, and realizing that this is a sacred spring, you eagerly drink from it, longing to taste the refreshing water and to gain its spiritual fortification. You feel the water going down your throat, and cool and refreshing, and then permeating through you. The water flows through your body, dissolving as it does to the purest essence of you. Soon your consciousness expands, and it and your body, now infused with the water, becomes as a fluid and free. You observe this strange phenomena of all your parts separating yet remaining a part of a jostling continuum, flowing easily where they are meant to go. Understand this feeling of allowing yourself to flow exactly as you're meant to, unhindered by obstacles or any challenges in your life path. You understand the lesson of water in this state. Obstacles and pulls along your journey are in fact opportunities that provide you with character and individuality on your path towards your future. You are now a long, glistening, individual river of light. There may be obstacles, but you will flow towards where you're meant to go. And now your body now coalesces back into a solid form, and you move snake-like through a calm pool of water, aiming for the other bank. As the serpentine motion is felt along your body, you are aware that this, internally, the same motion is pulsing energy through your energy system. This is the energy of the earth, dragon power, a motion which gives birth to possibilities. Take a moment to feel a kinship with the power as it moves freely through you. You emerge from the water in this pool. Water cascades into the pool from a waterfall on the opposite bank, and you realise that this is where you entered the pool from the forest above. You're filled with an overpowering sense of peace in this place. This is yet another gift from Our Lady Brigid, and now that you have found this place, it can ever be yours to return to relax and safely ponder the spirit realm. Sitting quietly on the bank, you now make contact with your lower chakra. You feel it pulse with renewed energy. The experience of dissolution in the bubbling stream has cleansed you and your aura and given you clarity of thought. An understanding comes to you. Why am I waiting for the gods to tell me what to do at this moment? What do I really need? So reaching out to the goddess, you try to communicate your feelings about why you are here, and you say, Brigid, please give me the true knowledge of myself. The energies respond both around you and within you. Your consciousness expands and you marvel at the clarity of the water, the dappled light reflecting here and there the sunlight through the water. You see the fire of the sun, and you know that all the elements are perhaps not as separate and as polar opposite than you may have originally thought. You thank the lady for this spectacular insight, and perhaps other truths about you come to the fore as clearly as the water themselves now. As you sit and reflect on the forces around you and the ancestors who walked through this place, you feel complete and calm and have a real feeling of inner peace. You can take this inner peace, knowledge and calm with you back to the physical place which you are now in. The chimes will ring 9 times, and then you will collect yourself calmly back to where you are during this time. And then when you're ready, you can focus on an image of an altar candle. If you have one, open your eyes and look at it. If you don't, focus on the image of one. And now, as you feel completely calm and relaxed, back in the room, reflect for a moment the lessons you have learned and the paths you have trod, and feel the presence of the Goddess with you, and thank the Lady for being with you and helping you along the path. And now, ask the Goddess to make sure you're completely collected back in the physical room. Remember to eat something and give blessings. I thank you for listening to the path working. I thank you for listening to the presentation. May the Lady Brigid give you blessings. Thank you.